Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for tuning in to another interview with King Solomon Entertainment. We're just committed to continue to bring you great programming and great content. And you know our two flagship shows, which is Philanthropy at its Best and Hollywood Now. And also we got Live on the Red and other shows that's coming. Today we have another great interview with Philanthropy at its Best that is centered around humanitarianism, philanthropy, just people who are committed to changing lives with their causes. And today we have another wonderful, great individual that's coming on to share about their contribution and how they're making a difference. And we're going to allow some more people to come in before I bring my guest on. And I want to also do the introduction as far as you can continue to support us directly by commenting, sharing, subscribing, and just letting people know about King Solomon Entertainment and the wonderful work that we're doing. And we're going to continue to stay committed in doing just that. And so we're so excited about the momentum of the show and of the media that we're doing. And let's continue to follow us on all social media on Twitter, King Solomon Entertainment, Facebook, King Solomon Entertainment, as well as Instagram, King Solomon Entertainment. And on YouTube, please subscribe to James Clavin Interviews. And you can also support us directly on Zelle, Cash App, PayPal, King Solomon Entertainment Company. And we're going to continue to move forward in doing just that and continue to bring you great content as we're allowing more people to come in. I want to thank you guys for your patience. And our guest is standing by. I see him in. I waved at him. I'm going to bring him in just a second. And as I also do, I let them introduce themselves and then we get right into the interview. And so I'm just giving people a few more time. I'm going to bring my guest in and we're going to get started with today's Philanthropy at its Best interview, where we just continue to bring forth great philanthropists and people that are on the front line that are making a difference and really bringing what is needed, full circle as far as empowering us with the right information and just knowing that all these resources are readily available to you to take at your fingertips and that you can use them as you see fit because it's there to empower you and to make your life and your quality of life better. And we're so excited. We're going to bring our guests in and get started with the interview. So, thank you. Hey, that was easy. Sometimes it's not as easy as others, but that was pretty easy. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for doing this platform with us. Like I said, it's Philanthropy at its Best, where we honor and celebrate wonderful philanthropists and people who are at the helm of making a difference and doing wonderful work in the community, such as yourself, and the wonderful causes that you are at the helm of. And I want you to introduce yourself and get right into what it is that you do.
Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to the conversation. My name is Shawn Rochester. I am a entrepreneur, an investor, an advocate. I also wrote a book called The Black Tax: The Cost of Being Black in America. And during that book, I explored the financial cost of discrimination against Black people from the time of slavery until the present. I've also written another book called CPR for the Soul, which is all about personal financial management and how do we manage our limited resources to the highest and best use to drive cash flow. And SOUL is an acronym for stewardship, ownership, and legacy. So at the end of the day, we want to do good and we want to do well and take as many people along with us.
Yes, and reason why I found what you do is so interesting because I'm also a community activist, community organizer, and when I revisit eras such as civil rights and other um, um, systems that plagued us, like the Black Code, sharecropping, Jim Crow, etc. There was, if it was an economic dynamic to it, it kind of fizzled out, because I can remember vaguely with civil rights when they began to do the boycott and how it affected the local bus system. But after that concession, there was no more. And at the end of King, when he did the poverty, war on poverty thing he did, that's when it kind of like ended for him. But it was never a full fruition of economic continuation of bringing, closing the gap of disparity of economics. So I find it very interesting that here you are revisiting and you including the history and bringing it all together. And so I find it very fascinating. So let's start with, as you say in the book, the financial cost of the consciousness. And so, so pretty much sum it up as far as anti-Black discrimination, as far as economics.
Yeah, so the Black tax is the financial cost of discrimination against Black people. It's driven by conscious and unconscious bias from individuals and institutions and organizations. And the point is that that has a financial impact that can turn into an intergenerational impact. So where people look at discrimination from, different perspectives, injustice, immorality, things like that, I wanted to look at it from the perspective of what's the cost, right? And not only that, but what does research from the finest institutions in the country say that the cost is?
Yeah, and so in that, there is no generation transferring of wealth because of it. It's institutional, and so because it's built in our everyday society. Um, how do you even begin to even maneuver? How do you even escape it? Even if at their discretion they can press and implement it even more, and it continue to streamline itself in different ways. So how do you even escape it? Because it seems like it's inevitable.
Yeah, first you gotta understand what it is and how it's manifesting itself, right? So the first way is you got conscious bias, which is you know exactly what you're doing, right? It's explicit. And then you have an unconscious variety, which is it's unknown to you, right? And even if you really focus on it and think about it, it's not apparent what you're doing. But so the issue becomes not so much what's driving it, but what's the impact of it, right? So, if you do look at the studies, it'll show you that if, bias from an explicit standpoint, which is people know exactly what they're doing, is like 51%, right, across the electorate. That's a pretty high number. And then if you look at, unconscious bias or implicit bias, you'll see that that's closer to 56, or about 6 out of 10. Again, that's a really high number. And then there's other studies that place those numbers even higher. So the first part is, yeah, it exists, and the research is pretty clear on it. The second part is how is it showing up, right, in ways that cause a financial effect for Black people. And that's what I start to explore in the book, The Black Tax. I start looking at, okay, how does that manifest itself in areas that are really important for accumulation? So it's housing, the car industry, automotive, it's the insurance, it's the financing, it is the job search, right? It's really high-end careers where you think people would be more objective, but this is still playing out. It's online commerce, capital raising for business. It's a pretty significant and pervasive thing that's showing up, and we start to think about what's the financial impact of that. And then there's a look back over time that says, well, what did this look like in the past? And that's what I explore in the second part of the book.
Oh, so and empowering yourself with this information, making the connections with this information. You mentioned the burden of the African American household. Like how do it become a burden?
Oh, it's significant, right? So this is there are a number of things to look at. So if you look at in the past, right, the resources that you have now are because of something that was done in the past that allows you to have those resources now, right? So if you look at what was the cost of, all the labor extracted from Black people during the time of slavery, right? That's massive and substantial. If you look at, well, what happened as Black people transferred out of being in bondage into freedom, what was done there, right? And you're moving, past this into a period of Jim Crow, where you have further extraction of resources that are pervasive and draconian. You look at the fact that there was never any restitution that was done for all that labor that was extracted. You heard about, 40 acres and a mule that never actually occurred, right? There wasn't any startup capital, right? Which is extraordinarily difficult. And capital accumulates over time. So resources were denied to Black people in America. Resources were extracted from Black people in America, and then you don't have the intergenerational flows that should be there, right? And that winds up leading to extraordinarily large gaps in wealth, gaps in employment, and gaps in the number of businesses that we have, that have employees.
But this is so interesting because to me, this speaks to also the statement they say, well, everybody else came over here and did it. Why can't you guys do it? You've been here, and this speaks directly to that. That is systematic and it's systemic. It's built into every fabric of life. And for you to put your hands on it and to be able to articulate something that they seem as is not you're not able to because it's constantly moving, and you done just that. And this is what's so fascinating about it. And people still don't get it because I think they're confusing their survival apparatus with what's really going on, because I think it's easier to cope with not focus on the man and let me just focus on surviving and complaining, what complaining ever do. But this is so real, and when it's in every facet of life, employment, housing, etc., how do you escape something? You're gonna have to face it eventually, whether you're in the north, whether you're in the south. It's plagued all over, and so eventually you're gonna have to be faced with these type of challenges. And one of the ways you can be somewhat successful is by knowing what's going on.
Yeah. So, if you think about it, it's not in the curriculum, right? It's not in the curriculum K through 12, and it's really not in the curriculum at university, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're fortunate enough to take a class that'll, go into one specific area, but you don't get anywhere close to the fullness.
Right.
So you're drawing conclusions out of context, right? You look around and you see communities as they exist now, and then we're associated by nature. So then we associate it with the people and not with what was done to create those environments. So there's no real understanding.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have a myriad of very negative imaging, right? Yeah. About Black men, about Black women, about relationships when it comes to Black people, about achievement and excellence and business and a whole host of things. It's all this kind of negative imagery, and then you're just seeing, well, why are people in a situation? Well, we have to be clear. No one went through the period of slavery and what was extracted from Black people during that time. If you start looking at the upper limits of what that number could be, it's over, it's pushing 50 trillion. If you start looking at the land that was denied to Black people, that 40 acres and a mule, right? That's $1 trillion. And by the way, I'm not talking about LA, Bay Area, Miami or New York type property. I'm just talking about farmland equivalent, right? And then if you talk about labor that was, extracted during that Jim Crow period, I mean, it continues, right? If you talk about the massive level of underdevelopment in education through this construct of separate but equal, which was nothing more than a vehicle to channel resources to, white family and white children, and away from Black families and Black children through the educational process. So other people did not go through that construct. Now they're making decisions and they're coming to conclusions completely out of context, right? They don't have the information. They're not familiar with what the studies say. From their perspective, they're just believing the narrative, which is everybody's got the same chance and everybody's got the same shot. And it's just about bootstraps and individualism and making the right decisions and the like. And if you've seen like my talks online, we're actually going to very much detail on these things.
Yeah.
It becomes super clear that there's no decision that you're going to make that's going to shield you from this, right? These systems were, you know, the design was it was diabolical, it was nefarious, and it was efficient, right, in a very ruthless way. And once people start to understand that, and particularly from an economic perspective, then you bring understanding, right, into the situation. Then you bring empathy into the situation. Then you start to see, like, if it had been you or your group, there would be no different outcome. There is no MacGyver situation where you kind of figure your way out, right? And one of the things that people start to really understand, and they certainly know it, but when you see the data behind it, it's very different, is that, you know, this level of discrimination and tyranny actually never stopped. It just changes form.
Yeah, but
right?
and it changes form. But when I listen to it, and I hear you, even if I hear you articulate it now, it answers every level, every facet of where you may think you are on the spectrum. It speaks to you directly, because even if you say, "Hey, I'm not going to have a pity party. I'm going to build myself up by the bootstrap." When you talk about extracting land that they have got obtained, not because of, but in spite of doing those errors and sharecropping, they were paying for property 4 and 5 times over and still losing it. And tell me, how do you escape something like that? It's equivalent today of those who are successful, not because of, but in spite of, and they're railroading them even today. And so it's like, how do you feel like you are escaping this?
Yeah, so let's take a concrete example, right? You know, the greatest wealth building vehicle has been real estate appreciation, right, in the United States. It's the American dream. The country's very, very committed to it. If you look empirically at the number of mortgages that were issued, right, between 1929, right, and 1960, less than 1% of all of those went to Black families.
Mm.
Less than 1%. The greatest wealth. And by the way, if you look at the wealth portfolio of the average Black family, 63% of that is for real estate, right? Because housing is super critical. If you're so blessed to be in that position, you have millions of Black families unable to participate in that. There's no substitute for that. And it was not because people couldn't make the payments. And it wasn't that people were you know, unqualified. It's that they were systematically, right, in a government sponsored way through via redlining, which we're familiar with, and I won't go into details of that. You are unable to participate. The government will not subsidize your lending. That has $1 trillion impact. That's what people don't understand, because we don't speak about things in terms of the numbers, right? That allowed people to be able to use that to take money out from that real estate appreciation to start businesses, to pay for a university. That's human capital development. It's super critical, right? Directly proportional to what you can make and learn and earn and all those kinds of things. Even though Black people in America have the desire, right, the capability, the drive, the motivation, you don't have the economic resources, right, to do it. So there are structural economic impediments to development and to advancement, and that's what is important to help people understand, right? Like, you come here, you're excited, it's upward mobility. I mean, America is an extraordinary place to be, but when you come here, you get excited. No one says you can't go to that school, right? No one says you can't start that business, right? Like, you know, Black people were murdered for doing these things, right? For the American dream, and no one's being is prosecuted for it, right? That energy can be quickly extinguished. So when you're talking about people having to go through, you know, almost 100-year period of that, it's extraordinary. People think like civil rights is, you know, 1965, right? Original civil rights legislation was in 1875, right? That's when it was passed, 1875, right? And then quickly struck down in 1883 by the Supreme Court, who said, you know, they don't have the ability to tell individuals how to discriminate,
Mm.
right? You know what I mean? And it's not discriminate just for discrimination's sake. Discrimination is an economic construct, right?
Yes.
Discrimination lowers commerce, it lowers trade,
Yeah.
right? It can have a tremendously devastating impact. And when we start to talk about things from this perspective and give people some context around it, then you start to see why it would be so difficult. I mean, if you look at, you know, Black people's ownership of total U.S. wealth, it's around 2%
Yeah.
after 400 years.
Yeah.
That's an extraordinary low amount. There's no way that that would be the case unless you have something that's structural and external that's constantly in place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's devastating. But you definitely put a real picture of it by definitely going detail into all the things that have transpired and continue to be in effect, because again, it's about the results. And if you're still getting the same results even 400 years later, then what is in place, what is happening? And people need to understand, that there are these systems that's constantly created to get the same results.
Yeah, and folks can, if I can take the liberty, I mean, folks can check out some of my talks, right, in Google,
Yeah.
you know, Hofstra University and stuff, where I go into detail. It's not a qualitative conversation.
Yeah.
It's not an opinion piece. It's not any of that, right? It's very, very rigorous. They can take a look at the book, The Black Tax: The Cost of Being Black in America,
Yeah.
where it is very, very rigorous and detail based. And I don't talk about anything that's not tied to research, right? That we all have access to.
Yeah.
And what we got to do is make sure that people have the right context, they have the right information, because folks have really strong positions with an extraordinary level of passion,
Yeah.
right? They also have a tremendous amount of power,
Yeah.
right? When it comes to employment and when it comes to admission and promotion and who gets what resources. If you combine that with a lack of context and information, you exacerbate the situation. And that's part of what we need people to do. You got to become educated on it. Like people always say, I think we should have a conversation on race. And I'm like, what kind of conversation do you expect to have when the uneducated speaks to the ill-informed, right? What you need to do is to become educated on it so that we're all at the same place and level of understanding. And then we can start to work together, right? To start to figure out how best to get out this situation. Because at the end of the day, we are underdeveloping millions of people. There's brilliance in Compton. There's brilliance on the south side of Chicago. There's brilliance in Ferguson. There's brilliance down in Louisiana. There's brilliance in all of these communities, right? That stuff is a normal distribution.
Yeah.
The issue is, are they getting the resources to fully develop to their potential? The answer is no.
No.
And that's what needs to change.
So you talk about the turning point in your book. Can you elaborate about what can we do to kind of sort of turn this around? I know that's probably seem far-fetched, but what are some of the gems that you share about what we can do now to start to turn this around?
Yeah. So one of the things I talk about is this economic framework called PhD, right? And PhD stands for purchase, hire, and deposit, in ways that create jobs, create and expand businesses, and provide capital in the Black community. You know what I mean? It's the framework by which you use to determine whether or not something is working. So at the end of the day, is it increasing employment? Are we showing up in your payroll in a representative way? Are we showing up in your supply chain? So companies buy products and services and transform them into the products and services that they provide, right? Are we in that supply chain? And are you providing capital, right? So uh, access to credit and loans and whatnot, so that we can, fuel our businesses. And if you're not doing those things, then it's just a shiny object.
Yeah.
So the issue becomes, let's look at everything kind of through that PhD lens, right? So as an individual, the P is what we buy, and we have control over that, right? There's a lot of things that we don't have control over, but we have control over that. So from my perspective, like, you'll hear about someone who, they're really blessed. They've had a terrific career, and God bless them, right? And they bought like a $6 million house, right? And it's stunning, and they kind of share with it. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. I'm super happy for them. My question is, do you apply PhD? So there were realtors in that transaction because they're buying and selling, right?
Yeah.
You probably paid $350,000 in fees. Was a Black realtor engaged in that?
Yeah.
Right? You got to insure the home. Are you going to utilize a Black broker or insurance provider? Right? You may decide that there's a couple of things you would like to change just to make it more of a home or whatever, right? Finish out the basement, redo the kitchen, all that kind of good stuff. Wonderful. Maybe some repairs that need to be done. Do we look at Black architects? Did we look at Black designers? Did we look at Black plumbers and electricians and heating and ventilation and all these kind of different things where these are terrific jobs that pay great salaries, provide for families. It flows through the communities. Or did we choose to use everybody else? Why do I bring this up? Because like 2% of Black spending goes to Black enterprise. That's a really small number. We could have a transformative effect just in terms of how we allocate our resources, right? Now, you don't got to go from 0 to 100, but we got to move away from 2% with swiftness, right? And that's within our control. Now, if you look at that from a company standpoint, that's what is the company spending their money on, right? So we appreciate the solidarity. We appreciate the concern. We appreciate all of the well wishes about wanting to deal with social justice issues and all that kind of stuff. That's wonderful. But are you buying from Black businesses? Are you providing capital to those businesses, right? Because your dream contract can bankrupt you, right? Because you got to put in all of the investment today and then you get paid in the future. That's working capital. If you don't have it, you need access to it, right? So you have all of these, kinds of things that you can say, all right, how do we meaningful from an economic standpoint? If you want to affect the community in a profound and positive way, do it through economics. Make sure that you are, employing us, right? Because most entrepreneurs actually spent time in industry. They learn functional expertise through employment, right? So even as you increase the level of employment within your firms, you're actually increasing the level of future entrepreneurs. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's a ripple effect.
Yeah, but also when I think about it when as you say it, and I think about it coming to fruition, I think a lot of people is ready, but I think that how do you do it? Because our experience has been historically, you hear about this happening before with the Starline production of Garvey. A lot of people that started to do business, Black Wall Street, all this. There was this railroading, there was this attack that, because it was effective, they wanted to eliminate it because of how powerful the economics, anything as far as the economic movement was destroyed. The reason why I bring that up because I don't think when you're starting from scratch, it's like, how do you make the connection? How do you even sort out, all the missing components of when you're buying a house and reaching out to these people and bringing it all together? Do you have that say in it, or do who you're dealing with dictates? So it's like, how do you even begin to make this happen? Because
don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
Nobody gets to tell you how to spend your money.
Yeah.
Like I'm just on the individual standpoint. It's much bigger than the individual, right? But the individual is you control what you do.
Yeah.
Right. So when possible, where possible, use high quality Black talent. It ain't that complicated.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's 16,000 auto dealers. There's 264 Black auto dealers pre-COVID. If there's a Black auto dealer around you, buy your car from. I'm not telling you what car to buy. I'm not telling you how to spend your money. I'm just saying buy it from a Black auto dealer. On average, they have 66 employees, great paying, amazing jobs. And they tend to have, Black people working there, right? Black people tend to be hiring Black people. Black people are actually the most diverse employers, by the way. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Right? 100%. So you control that. You don't need anybody's permission. There's nothing complicated about that. The only issue is, Well, where is the talent? Where are these businesses? Where are the service providers? Okay, so we put in the extra effort to go do it. There's a bunch of people who've orchestrated and allocated websites that can help to direct traffic. You know what I mean? You got places like We Buy Black that can help you get tons of Black products,
Yeah.
right? Leverage that, and you've had other ones that are trying to do the same thing when it comes to restaurants and other things, right? So when possible, where possible, do it. If you have great experiences, share it with broadly with people that you know. But now communicate that to your spheres of influence. So if you got a company, you do it. You get to choose who's on the payroll. You get to choose who you buy from. You get to choose where you do your banking, right? If you have customers that you work with, share with them what matters to you. There's a lot of people who are actually trying to do the right thing, but they focus on non-economic symbols. I have no interest in that whatsoever, right? I know you mean well, but did it add a job?
Yeah.
Okay. Did we add revenue? Did we create a business? Did we provide liquidity or loans or credit or anything to stimulate all this stuff? The answer is no. Okay. Well, can we?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's make sure that you hire more Black people, and be specific, by the way, right? Like when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking about being specific, right, to Black people in particular. And then as you start to interface with people who have significant impact, right? You may know business owners, you may know executives, you share with them what's important. You're the consumers, you're the confidant, or whatever. Just share that that's critical, and then require it from your politicians. The conversation is not personal.
Yeah.
It's, we're interested in jobs, business, and capital. Are you doing that? Well, we need you to do it. Help me help you. We'll help you put it together.
Yeah.
But unless you're doing that, then I can't vote for you. You know, I'd love to, right? But I need to see what you're doing. If you're not creating jobs, business, and capital, then what are you doing? What's the point? But we actually have to communicate this thing so people know it. We have to let them know that we value it, and then we got to make sure that and that we're there, making sure that we're with them when they're actually trying to do it and they're getting a negative reaction from it. But you got to be clear. And if you keep repeating that, it has a really powerful impact. You're not boiling the ocean. You don't need to convince everybody, right? Simply start with yourself, your area's influence, right? And then share out with as many people as possible, and make sure for 100% certain that your politicians are aware, because they can affect policy in an extraordinary way, right? They can put programs in place that can actually provide more capital to businesses, right? That affect the Black community in particular. So these are things that we need to communicate and to require and to hold people accountable for, and then to reward them when they do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I think that, like I said, I find people are apprehensive about where do I start? How do I start? What do I do? But you see a lot of galvanizing momentum towards exactly what you're saying. I think people are ready for change, and but they just don't know how, because every time we read about a great example, it was in history and it was quickly annihilated. And so here we are again. But I think it's definitely time, and I think more people, because I'm definitely familiar with the Buy Black movement. I reached out to them, and a lot of other great things that are in stride and momentum doing to the all of what's going on. But I think people are definitely ready, and so what you talk about is very prevalent and relevant, you know, and it just answers a lot of unanswered questions and connecting the dots. Because I believe that historically the economic component, which is just as valuable as the social and the political, was not have not been there, at least consistently, in a way that is effective. You know, so you doing this is very, very good, very great. So I commend you on that. So what are you currently working on?
Oh man, uh, a number of things. So there's obviously doing a lot of talks all over the place, different kind of companies, organizations, and stuff like that. This is really important conversation to have. I think people really appreciate that it's based on data. It's not based on opinion. It's not something that's emotional and all that kind of stuff, right? It's far more rigorous and tangible from that perspective. There is actually doing the work of trying to help entrepreneurs get access to capital, right? Which is a huge problem, and trying to help shape policy and help people think through how they're, very often there's well-intentioned policy, but it's just not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because they don't drive PhD. You can do a $1 billion project in the middle of a Black community and nobody Black benefit from it. The only way it's going to work is if you hire folks from that community, and it's going to be if you do business with people and firms and companies who are there, and if you use your balance sheet to provide loans and liquidity and credit, right? That's stimulus. The types of communities that we want, we can't have based on a gap of jobs, business, and capital. It just doesn't exist, which is why I'm always kind of focused on that. And there are a number of projects around that that are being worked on, and I'm pretty excited about a lot of stuff that's happening.
What about in realms of employment? A lot of the challenges that African Americans face as far as getting decent employment, whether they use the term overqualified or now all the impersonal interviews where they don't even call you in no more. They do it over to something like this, and they're like, okay, I see you now. So it's really becoming more and more challenging with the internet and just finding decent employment besides the basic minimum wage or even living wage. Even the people with education is having this challenge as well. So
Yeah.
in that regard,
So employment is a big item, and we'll need a bunch of time to talk about it. Black employment levels were 2x white unemployment levels for 60 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're losing billions of dollars in the community because of that. So you have unemployment, you have underemployment, which is people operating at levels below their skill set, right? Which is very, very problematic. And of course, you think about the impact of COVID, which is absolutely devastating, right, to the Black community from a health perspective as well as from an economic perspective. We've got the adult unemployment rate for Black people is about 51.2%. The official unemployment rate is 17%, right? But that's just people who are looking and can't find. Then there's people who aren't looking, right? And then there's people who are prevented from things like incarceration and other things like that. So it's devastating. You need to have it's a state of emergency, quite frankly, right, when it comes to the Black community. And we need things that are very specific and directed, financially towards the Black community. 440,000 Black businesses had to close, during this period of time. I mean, if you think about the devastation associated with that, a lot of those businesses aren't coming back, and it takes the economy a lot longer to return to full employment, right? So we need some really massive focused programs, but it's difficult to get the critical mass of support for those things if people believe somehow that this is just Black folks' problems, right? So there's a level of education that needs to happen, right? And then there's a level of informing kind of policy discussions and helping people stay focused on jobs, business, capital, right? And those things organized in a way that lead to positive educational and health outcomes.
Well, I want to thank you so much in conclusion in coming because, like I said, it really resonated with me. It spoke to me in more ways than one as far as answering and articulating experiences people go through but don't know how to express it. And I think you really did that with making it objective and keeping it very detailed and going with the research, which you can't really argue because it's right there.
Yeah.
And I think that it really speaks to an appeal to a more broader audience. And so I want to thank Mr. Shawn Rochester, the Black Tax. Definitely support and get his book. And please tell me your social media handles, how they can contact you, how they can get involved.
Yeah, so it's you know, Black Tax with an ED on Twitter and Instagram. It's, you know, Shawn Rochester on Facebook and LinkedIn, and they can get the book at www.blacktaxed.com. So that's www.blacktaxed.com. You know, um, we own we have full creative license. We own everything, right? Social
Are you a
industry.
professor as well? Do you teach? I expect you teach.
No, I do lectures often at different universities. I'm not a professor.
Okay.
You know, my undergrad is in engineering, chemical engineering. I have a master's in MBA, business administration from Chicago School of Business, with a focus in entrepreneurship and accounting and finance. And I spent many years working in, you know, mergers and acquisitions and traveling all over the world and doing lots of different transactions. So I bring a lot of different things to bear in terms of understanding these challenges. I think if we've been trained really well to make other people money, we can use some of that intellectual horsepower to help elevate our own people.
Absolutely. Well, I want to definitely thank you for doing the outlet today and the platform today. I want to definitely invite you to come back. In particular, I want, because again, economics, I have an annual conference that's called the Economic Movement Conference, and it's about bringing awareness in regards to finances and in all aspects that we can cover. It's small, but it's growing. We deal with financial literacy, investing, as well as insurance, you know, income taxes. So we really are trying to bring the financial community under one roof and really empower people with how to use the money that they do get and how to grow it. And like you say, to use PhD and other forms of
Yeah,
things that they could do now to make a difference tomorrow. And
yeah,
so I would definitely want to invite you to that, as well as I'm doing a forum with some politicians, and it would be great to bring on a component to where it includes the economics, because what she was saying was that how important the fundraising and the money and how you follow the money, which will
yep,
dictate how the politics work. So I think you would be excellent as well on that. So definitely be partnering with you and bringing you back on, because this is definitely effective. I think the research is there, and you definitely move it. I think it's all about connecting the dots and bringing it all together. And I think
yep,
once we get it all together, it's going to be able to open up to a lot more people as far as answering all these unanswered questions, or answering how do I even get started, or how do I even begin to change my life today.
yeah.
And by
And
you,
just
right? Yeah.
Yep. And just to reiterate, there's also the second book that I mentioned earlier, the CPR for the Soul. That's all about personal financial management. It's written in a really powerful, transformative way. You know, you're going to love it. A lot of advice is about how you allocate your resources. That's generally not our problem. It's how do we accumulate them in the first place, right? In a society that rewards you for looking well financially, but not being well financially, that's fueled by debt. So it's tailored to that. It's very powerful. It's awesome. You're gonna love it. And I think it complements the things that you're working on.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing the platform. Definitely reach out to all the social media handles. Continue to support, like, subscribe, share. We are on all social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, King Solomon Entertainment Company, YouTube, James Clayton Interviews, and definitely the website, kingsolomonentertainment.tv. Definitely support directly with Zelle, PayPal, Cash. We are definitely moving forward and bringing you continual great content and empowering information that you can change your life today and tomorrow. And thank you so much. I'm definitely going to have you back. I find what you're doing very relevant, and it's telling you it is, you're on to something, and I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's amazing. So definitely be encouraged. Are you from Chicago?
No, I'm originally from Barbados. I lived out east in Connecticut, and I went to business school in Chicago.
Okay, so yeah, I'm from
Yeah,
the South Side, so I'm from Chicago. So yeah,
yeah.
so okay, so definitely be in touch, and thank you guys for joining us. Talk to you soon, and just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, Mr. Rochester. Have a wonderful day. Okay, till next time. Okay,
Absolutely.
all right.